dim light of his study cast long shadows across the cluttered room, where stacks of ancient tomes, yellowed maps, and scattered notes lay in chaotic disarray. Dr. Jonathan Crane sat hunched over a fragile manuscript, its brittle pages whispering secrets from a forgotten age. The leather-bound volume, unearthed from the depths of a dusty antiquities shop in Cairo, held the tantalizing clue he had long sought, a cryptic account of a lost oasis hidden deep within an uncharted desert, a place said to vanish with the setting sun and grant immortality to those who reached its waters before twilight. Jonathan's sharp eyes traced the faded script, his mind racing to decipher the meaning behind the intricate symbols and poetic descriptions. The manuscript spoke of endless dunes that shifted like waves, mirages that deceived the unwary, and ancient temples guarding the oasis's secrets. A chill ran down his spine as he read the final passage, a warning etched in a language half forgotten. To seek eternal life beneath the desert moon is to dance with shadows that never fade. His breath caught. The legend had been dismissed by scholars for centuries, dismissed as myth or madness. Yet here, in his hands, was something tangible, a thread connecting past explorers, lost civilizations, and perhaps the key to redemption. A sudden buzz interrupted his thoughts. The phone on the desk vibrated insistently. Jonathan answered, his voice controlled but weary. "Jonathan, I heard about your find," came the cautious tone of Dr. Marcus Finch, his longtime colleague and a skeptic of all things mystical. "You're chasing shadows again, aren't you?" Jonathan's jaw tightened. "This isn't a shadow, Marcus. This is real. I can feel it. The manuscript is authentic, and if what it says is true, then you're courting danger," Marcus interrupted. "You know what happened last time. You lost more than just time." Jonathan's eyes flickered with pain. The memory of that failed expedition haunted him relentlessly. The suffocating sandstorms, the death of his closest friend, the bitter taste of failure etched into his soul. But this was different. This was his chance to right the wrongs of the past, to uncover a secret that could rewrite history. "I'm not turning back, Marcus. Not this time." The line went dead. Jonathan stared at the receiver, the weight of his decision settling like a stone in his chest. Later that day, he found himself wandering the narrow aisles of a dusty antiquities bookstore, the scent of aged paper and leather filling the air. The owner, an elderly man with wary eyes, watched as Jonathan examined rare maps and desert charts. "These maps," Jonathan said, tracing a finger over the faded lines, "they could guide us closer to the oasis. I need every scrap of information." The owner hesitated, then nodded slowly. "The desert keeps its secrets well. Many have lost their way chasing legends." Jonathan smiled grimly. "So have I, but this time I intend to succeed." Night draped the city in a blanket of stars as Jonathan returned to his apartment. Standing by the window, he gazed out over the twinkling lights, the manuscript resting on his desk like a silent promise. Memories of lost comrades and past mistakes flickered through his mind, but beneath the weight of regret burned an unyielding flame of hope. Tomorrow, the chase would begin. He turned away from the window, the desert moon rising faintly in the sky, casting a pale glow that seemed to beckon him toward the unknown. Somewhere beneath its light lay the oasis waiting, elusive, eternal, and Jonathan Crane was determined to find it. Dr. Jonathan Crane sat hunched over the ancient manuscript that had ignited the spark of a new obsession. The dim light from a single lamp cast long shadows across a cluttered desk scattered with maps, notes, and archaeological journals. His fingers traced the faded script, each word fueling the relentless drive that had come to define him. Outside, The desert sun blazed unforgivingly, but inside this small study, the heat of ambition burned even hotter. The manuscript was unlike anything Jonathan had encountered before, cryptic text speaking of a lost oasis hidden deep within a remote desert, a place whispered to hold the secret of immortality. Skepticism had always been his companion, but so too was an unyielding desire to redeem himself from past failures. Tonight, those two forces clashed fiercely as he resolved to pursue the legend no matter the cost. His first step was assembling the right team. The desert was merciless, and no single man could survive its trials alone. He needed expertise, endurance, and local knowledge. His thoughts turned to Leela Hassan, a desert survival expert whose reputation for navigating the shifting dunes was unmatched. The next morning, the bustling marketplace hummed with life beneath the scorching sun. Jonathan walked beside Leela, whose sharp eyes scanned the stalls filled with an array of desert gear leather boots, waterskins, compass instruments, and the faint scent of spices mingled with dust. Her athletic frame moved with ease, a stark contrast to the wary look etched on Jonathan's face. "We'll need the best water filtration systems," Lila advised, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "Without clean water, the desert will swallow us whole before we see the oasis." Jonathan nodded, absorbing her practical wisdom. "And food supplies, enough to last us weeks." "Packed and ready," she assured him, her intense eyes meeting his. "But it's not just about what we carry out here. It's how we read the desert, its moods, its illusions." Their partnership was born from respect and necessity, but Jonathan knew there was one more piece to the puzzle. Dr. Marcus Finch, a historian and expert in ancient languages, was skeptical of the manuscript's claims, but invaluable in deciphering its riddles. Jonathan found Marcus in a cramped study lined with dusty volumes. The older man adjusted his glasses, his brow furrowed as he surveyed the manuscript with a mixture of curiosity and doubt. "Jonathan," Marcus began cautiously, "these legends of immortality are the bread and butter of many a myth. You must temper your zeal with reason." Jonathan held his gaze firm. "I understand your skepticism, Marcus, but what if this is more than myth? What if there's truth buried beneath the sand?" "Truth or not," Marcus replied, "we must prepare for what lies ahead with clear eyes." The tension between them was palpable, the air thick with intellectual challenge and unspoken fears. Yet, beneath it all lay a shared commitment to discovery. Over the next days, Jonathan, Leela, and Marcus worked tirelessly, gathering supplies, planning routes, and debating strategies. Their conversations ranged from practical logistics to philosophical questions about the nature of myth and reality. The team was a microcosm of the larger journey, fraught with conflict but bound by a common goal. As the sun dipped toward the horizon on the eve of departure, the three stood around a table strewn with maps and gear. The desert wind whispered through the open window, carrying with it the promise of danger and discovery. Jonathan's voice broke the charged silence. "Tomorrow we cross the threshold. The desert will test us all, but together we stand a chance." Leela's eyes glinted with determination. "I'll lead us through the dunes, but we must trust one another." Marcus nodded slowly. "And keep our minds sharp. The desert plays tricks, but knowledge will be our shield." As the last light faded, Jonathan felt the weight of expectations settle upon him. The path ahead was uncertain, the risks immense. Yet, beneath the surface of doubt, a fierce hope burned bright. This was more than an expedition, it was a chance to rewrite history and redeem a haunted soul. With the team assembled, the desert awaited, its endless dunes promising trials that would push each of them to their limits. The chase had begun, and beneath the unforgiving sun, the lost oasis beckoned like a mirage shimmering on the horizon. But shadows lurked beyond the dunes, and not all who sought the oasis did so with pure intent. Jonathan's resolve would soon be tested in ways he could never have imagined. Tonight, preparation gave way to anticipation. Tomorrow, the desert would decide their fate. The quiet room echoed with the unspoken question: could belief and skepticism coexist long enough to lead them to the truth? The journey was just beginning. The morning sun was relentless, casting a harsh glow over the barren landscape as the convoy rumbled away from the dusty outpost. Dr. Jonathan Crane sat behind the wheel of the lead vehicle, his weathered face taut with concentration. The desert stretched before them like an endless sea of golden waves, shifting and rippling beneath the heat haze in a mesmerizing dance. Every mile they traveled seemed to swallow them deeper into an unforgiving world where survival depended on both skill and sheer will. Beside him, Leela Hassan scanned the horizon with sharp, intense eyes. Her experience was their compass in this vast wilderness, and she carried the desert's secrets in her steady voice and confident gestures. "The dunes are alive," she said quietly, tracing a path with her finger. "They move with the wind, hiding dangers and hiding truths. The oasis? It's more than just water and shade. It's a place where the desert breathes life and death in equal measure." Jonathan nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle over the team like a protective cloak. The manuscript he had uncovered was just the beginning now. The desert itself was telling its story, one whispered on the dry wind. Behind them, Dr. Marcus Finch adjusted his glasses, his brow furrowed in skepticism. "I still find it hard to believe in a place that vanishes at sunset," he muttered, scanning the horizon as if expecting the oasis to materialize just beyond the next dune. Legends can be dangerous. They blur the line between fact and fantasy. Jonathan's jaw tightened. "Sometimes," he replied, "it's the fantasy that drives us to discover the truth." The vehicles kicked up clouds of sand that trailed behind them like ghostly veils. Alina Cruz, seated in the rear, checked supplies and ensured every member of the team was hydrated and prepared for the journey ahead. Her calm presence was a balm against the desert's harsher moods. By midday, the sun's heat was oppressive, pressing down on the group with an almost tangible weight. The landscape was stunning in its stark beauty, endless dunes undulating against a cobalt sky, ancient rock formations casting long shadows in the distance. Yet beneath the surface of this breathtaking expanse lurked hidden perils. Loose sand threatening to swallow their vehicles, sudden gusts of wind that could blind and disorient, and the ever-present specter of dehydration and exhaustion. That evening, the team made camp on a small plateau overlooking a valley carved by time and wind. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange and pink, Lila gathered the team around a modest fire. Her voice softened, weaving tales of the desert's mysteries and the oasis's enduring legend. Long ago, she began, the oasis was a sanctuary for travelers and tribes, a gift from the gods, or so the stories say. It appears only to those worthy, those who understand the desert's true nature. It's not just water that it offers, but a chance to touch eternity. Her words hung in the cool night air, wrapping the group in a shared reverence. Jonathan caught the flicker of hope in his teammates' eyes, a fragile flame that flickered against the vast darkness of the unknown. Marcus, ever the skeptic, cleared his throat. "Or it's a trick of light and sand," he said cautiously. "A mirage crafted by nature's whim. We must keep our feet and our minds firmly on the ground." Jonathan met his gaze steadily. "Doubt is necessary, Marcus, but so is belief. Without it, we're lost before we even begin." The desert night deepened around them, stars sparkling like scattered diamonds above the endless dunes. The wind whispered through the camp, carrying with it the scent of sand and ancient secrets. As they settled in for the night, the desert seemed to hold its breath. The journey had only just begun, but already it was clear that the dunes were more than a backdrop. They were a living, breathing force that would challenge every step of the way. Jonathan lay awake, staring at the vast canopy of stars, his mind racing through the path ahead. The lost oasis was no longer just a legend. It was a destination etched into his very soul. The desert had claimed many before him, but he was determined to be the one who uncovered its truth. With dawn just hours away, he whispered to the night, "We're coming." The desert answered only with silence, vast, eternal, and waiting. The desert was a living mirage, a vast expanse of shimmering heat and shifting sands that toyed mercilessly with the senses. Dr. Jonathan Crane stood atop a towering dune, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun's glare warped the landscape into an illusionist's playground. Sweat trickled down his weathered face, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the wavering heat waves despite the exhaustion clawing at his limbs. As the desert wind whispered through the dunes, Jonathan's mind betrayed him. There, just beyond the next ridge, he saw the unmistakable figure of his lost friend Mark, Evans, standing as if waiting. The apparition flickered like a fragile flame, a cruel echo of a past that refused to fade. Jonathan's heart clenched, the familiar ache of guilt and loss washing over him anew. "Jonathan," a voice called softly. It was Leela Hassan, her silhouette steady against the glaring sun. "We need to move. The sands won't wait for ghosts." He blinked, shaking off the haunting vision. "I saw him," Jonathan murmured, voice thick. "Mark." Lila's eyes softened but held firm. "Mirages, Jonathan. The desert plays tricks. Focus." The team pressed forward, their footsteps swallowed by the endless dunes. Each step was a battle against the desert's oppressive heat and deceptive horizons. Jonathan's mind wavered, shadows of the past entwining with the present. Memories of the failed expedition haunted every grain of sand the sudden storm. The lost comrades, the unforgiving terrain that had claimed so much. Meanwhile, miles away in a hidden encampment shaded by sparse palms, Malik al-Sayed sat with a cold smile twisting his scarred features. His dark eyes gleamed with ruthless calculation. Beside him, Rashid, the desert's local informant, spoke in hushed tones, detailing Jonathan's progress. "He's still chasing shadows," Malik sneered, fingers drumming impatient rhythms on the wooden table. "But he won't escape me this time." Rashid nodded, his weathered face unreadable. "The desert is unforgiving. He's walking into a trap of his own making." Back with the expedition, Lila took the lead, her steps sure as she guided the weary group through a bewildering maze of dunes that shifted with every gust of wind. The heat waves danced, distorting the landscape into a labyrinth of impossible angles and false trails. "Don't trust what your eyes tell you," Lila warned, her voice steady despite the strain. "Follow the sun and the stars, not the mirages." Jonathan struggled to steady his breath, the desert's illusions gnawing at his resolve. At times, the sands whispered secrets, and shadows of the past seemed to flicker just beyond reach. The weight of his guilt, the memory of Mark's death, threatened to unravel him. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in hues of crimson and gold, Jonathan paused. The desert around him blurred and shifted until he was no longer in the present, but trapped in a vivid replay of that tragic day. The sandstorm that had swallowed his team roared anew, the the screams and chaos echoing in his mind. "You couldn't save them," a voice hissed in the wind. "You failed." His fists clenched, eyes burning with tears he refused to shed. "No," he whispered fiercely, "I won't fail again." Leela approached quietly, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "The past is a desert storm, Jonathan. You can't outrun it, but you can choose to walk beyond it." He nodded, swallowing the pain. The desert was more than an adversary. It was a mirror reflecting his deepest fears and hopes. And somewhere beneath those endless dunes, the lost oasis awaited, beacon of redemption or ruin. That night, under a canopy of stars, Jonathan's resolve hardened. The mirages would come, the memories would haunt, but he was determined to press forward. For Mark, for the team, and for the chance to rewrite the fate that had long shadowed his soul. Meanwhile, Moloch's camp stirred with restless energy. The mercenaries prepared for their advance, shadows moving like predators beneath the moonlight. The chase was no longer a whisper. It was a relentless pursuit set against the unforgiving desert. As dawn broke, Jonathan glanced once more at the horizon, the shimmering heat waves promising both peril and promise. The desert was watching, waiting, and so was Malik. The race beneath the desert sun had truly begun. The desert sun hung low in the sky, casting long, wavering shadows over the endless dunes as the expedition pushed forward. Dr. Jonathan Crane scanned the horizon with a practiced eye, noting subtle changes in the wind and the shifting patterns of sand. The team had been making steady progress, their spirits buoyed by the promise of discovery and the faint shimmer of the lost oasis somewhere beyond the horizon. Yet the desert was a fickle adversary, and the calm was a fragile illusion. Laila Hassan, ever vigilant, was the first to notice the subtle shift in the air. "The wind's changing," she called out, her voice taut with caution. "We need to prepare." Jonathan nodded, signaling the team to tighten their formation. Dr. Marcus Finch adjusted his glasses, squinting against the growing gusts that began to stir the desert sands. Alina Cruz checked the medical supplies with practiced efficiency, ready for whatever the desert might throw at them. Within moments, the wind surged with violent force, whipping the sand into a blinding frenzy. The once clear sky darkened as the swirling particles danced like phantoms, turning day into a stormy twilight. The roar of the gale was deafening, drowning out shouts and the creak of supplies. Jonathan's heart pounded as he shouted orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Form a circle. Protect the injured. Stay close." The team scrambled, instinctively moving to shield one another. Leela's hands were steady as she secured ropes and covered faces, while Alina crouched beside a young team member who had stumbled, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. "Hold still," Alina murmured, applying a bandage with calm precision despite the howling storm. Marcus struggled against the wind, his skepticism momentarily forgotten as survival became paramount. "This is more than a simple sandstorm," he shouted, eyes wide as he scanned the swirling horizon. Jonathan's gaze hardened. "It's nature's test. We endure." As the tempest raged, the team's cohesion was stretched thin. Arguments flared in the brief lulls. Marcus questioning the wisdom of continuing the quest, Leela urging caution, and Jonathan insisting on pushing forward. The stress carved lines of exhaustion and doubt on their faces. Through the veil of sand, a shadow moved, a flicker of dark figures, advancing with deliberate purpose. Malik al-Sayed's mercenaries emerged like specters, their approach masked by the storm's fury but unmistakably close. Their ruthless leader, scarred and unyielding, watched from a distance, calculating. Jonathan's fists clenched. "They're close," he growled. We can't afford to falter now. The team tightened their circle once more, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The storm, relentless and unforgiving, became a battleground where endurance and will clashed against the elements and human greed. Jonathan's mind raced, weighing strategies, knowing that every decision could mean life or death. As the sandstorm began to wane, the desert revealed its scars-trampled footprints, torn equipment, and the wounded struggling to rise. But amidst the chaos, a fierce determination burned brighter than ever. The oasis was near. The fight for its secrets was only just beginning. Jonathan's voice cut through the settling dust, steady and commanding. We move at first light. Rest now tomorrow. The desert will decide who deserves its truth. The night settled in, cold and silent beneath the vast desert sky. The storm's fury, a fading memory, but its warning etched deep in their bones. Moloch's silhouette lingered on the horizon, a dark omen of the relentless pursuit that awaited them. In the quiet moments before dawn, Jonathan allowed himself a brief glance at the stars overhead. Beneath the desert moon, the chase would continue, and the cost of ambition would soon be reckoned.